February 12, 1942. 3:47 a.m. The Barents Sea, Arctic Circle. A torpedo slams into the side of HMS Trinidad, and the explosion throws 19-year-old able seaman Jack Cornwell into water so cold it feels like liquid fire. His ship is sinking. His crewmates are screaming. The nearest land is 40 miles of pack ice in every direction. He has maybe 3 minutes before hypothermia kills him. What happens next will become the most classified naval operation of World War II. Because Jack Cornwell doesn't die in that water, he climbs onto an ice floe. He starts walking. And 6 months later, every German U-boat in the North Atlantic will be at the bottom of the ocean. All because one teenager refused to freeze to death. Jack Cornwell was born in a place that doesn't exist anymore. Stepney, East London, 1923. The docks, the warehouses, the narrow streets that smelled like coal smoke, and the Thames at low tide. His father worked the cranes at the Royal Docks, loading and unloading cargo ships from every corner of the British Empire. 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, barely enough money to feed 4 children. Jack was the youngest. Learned to fight early, learned to take a punch, learned that nothing comes easy and nobody hands you anything. By the time he turned 14, he was working alongside his father. Not in the cranes, he was too small for that, but in the warehouses, moving crates, hauling rope, doing the grunt work that breaks most men by 40. Jack loved it. Loved the ships, loved the smell of tar and diesel, loved watching the massive freighters slide into the docks like floating cities. He'd stand on the pier during his lunch break and watch them come and go, bound for Africa, India, Australia, places he'd only seen in school books. One day, he told his father, "I'm going to sail on one of those." His father laughed. Not unkindly, but the way working men laugh when their sons dream too big. "You'll work the docks like me," he said. "It's steady work, honest work, better than most." Jack nodded, didn't argue, but he didn't stop dreaming either. September 3rd, 1939. Britain declares war on Germany. Jack is 16 years old, too young to enlist legally, but old enough to lie. He walks into the Royal Navy recruitment office in Whitechapel, tells them he's 18 and signs his name on the dotted line. They don't question it. The Navy needs bodies. The war is 6 hours old and already they're desperate for sailors. Basic training at HMS Raleigh, Plymouth. 8 weeks of learning to tie knots, read signal flags, operate a rifle, and march in formation. Jack excels at none of it. He's small, 5'6", maybe 130 pounds soaking wet. The physical training nearly kills him. The obstacle courses, the route marches with full pack, the punishment drills when someone screws up and the whole unit pays for it. But Jack has something the bigger recruits don't. He doesn't quit. Ever. When the instructors scream in his face, he stares back. When they make him run until he vomits, he finishes the run and asks what's next. By the end of training, the chief petty officer pulls him aside. "You're too stubborn to die, Cornwell," he says. "The Navy needs men like you." Jack ships out in December 1939. First posting is aboard HMS Exeter, a heavy cruiser operating in the South Atlantic. Hunting German surface raiders, merchant ships converted into warships that prey on Allied convoys. It's dangerous work. The South Atlantic is vast, empty, and the raiders can hide in 1,000 different places. For 6 months, Exeter chases ghosts. They find nothing. Then comes the River Plate. December 13th, 1939. Dawn. Off the coast of Uruguay. Exeter, along with 2 light cruisers, Ajax and Achilles, encounters the German pocket battleship Admiral Graf Spee. The Graf Spee is a monster. 6 11-inch guns, armored hull, faster than anything the British have in these waters. Exeter has 8-inch guns. Ajax and Achilles have 6-inch guns. The math is not in their favor. The British attack anyway. The Battle of the River Plate lasts 4 hours. Graf Spee's shells tear Exeter apart. The bridge is destroyed. The forward turrets are knocked out. Fires rage below decks. 61 men are killed. 23 wounded. Exeter limps away, taking on water, barely afloat. But the damage to Graf Spee is enough. The German captain retreats to Montevideo harbor, and 4 days later, Rather than face the British fleet he believes is waiting outside, he scuttles his ship. Jack Cornwell survives the battle. Spends 3 days helping pump water out of flooded compartments, dragging wounded men to the makeshift sick bay, cleaning blood off the deck. He's 17 years old. He doesn't sleep for 60 hours. When Exeter finally reaches port for repairs, Jack collapses in his hammock and sleeps for 14 hours straight. The nightmares start that night. The screaming, the fires, the smell of burning flesh. They never really stop. Exeter spends 6 months in dry dock. Jack is reassigned, this time to HMS Trinidad, a colony-class light cruiser operating in the Arctic, the worst posting in the Royal Navy. The Arctic convoys are hell. Merchant ships carrying supplies to the Soviet Union through the Barents Sea, North Cape, some of the most hostile waters on Earth. Temperatures drop to 40 below zero. Waves tall as buildings. Ice forms on the rigging so thick the ships become top-heavy and capsize. And the Germans. U-boats, surface raiders, Luftwaffe bombers operating out of occupied Norway. The convoys are slaughtered. PQ-17, one of the worst. Of 35 merchant ships, only 11 reach port. 24 are sunk. 153 men freeze to death in the water. Jack's job on Trinidad is aft lookout. 12-hour shifts standing on an exposed platform scanning the horizon for U-boats, surface contacts, anything that might kill them. The cold is unimaginable. The wind cuts through every layer of clothing. Ice forms in his eyelashes. His fingers go numb inside thick gloves. Men lose toes, fingers, noses to frostbite. Some go mad from the isolation and the cold and throw themselves over the side. Jack survives by staying angry. Angry at the cold, angry at the Germans, angry at the war that took him from the docks of London and dropped him in this frozen nightmare. Anger keeps you warm when nothing else will. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching this from. Are you somewhere warm? Somewhere cold? Let me know in the comments. March 29th, 1942. Convoy PQ-13. Trinidad is escorting 19 merchant ships through the Barents Sea. The weather is brutal even by Arctic standards, snowstorms so thick you can't see 50 feet. The convoy scatters. Ships lose visual contact with each other. Some wander off course and are never seen again. At 3:15 a.m., a German U-boat, U-585, fires a spread of 4 torpedoes at Trinidad. 3 miss. One hits the starboard side just below the waterline amidships. The explosion is catastrophic. The blast tears a hole 30 feet across. Water floods into the engine room. The ship lists immediately, 15 degrees to starboard. Alarms scream. Men pour out of hatches, shouting, confused, half-dressed. Jack is thrown from his bunk by the impact. The compartment is tilting. Water is rushing in through cracks in the bulkhead. He grabs his life vest, pulls on his boots, no time for anything else, and runs for the ladder. The deck is chaos. Men are launching life rafts, activating emergency lights, screaming orders that nobody can hear over the wind and the alarms. The captain is trying to save the ship, damage control teams working to seal the breach, but it's hopeless. The water is coming in faster than they can pump it out. At 3:47 a.m., the order comes: abandon ship. Jack runs to his muster station. His life raft is already gone, launched by someone else in the panic. The ship is listing 30 degrees now. The deck is slick with ice. Men are sliding into the water. Jack looks over the side. The Barents Sea, black as ink, lit only by the burning oil from the ruptured fuel tanks. Men are screaming in the water. The cold kills in minutes. Some are already floating face down. Jack looks for another raft. They're all gone. Every single one. Launched or destroyed or swept away by the waves. He's out of options. The ship is sinking beneath him. If he stays aboard, he'll go down with her. If he jumps, he'll freeze to death in the water. He jumps. The cold is worse than anything he's ever imagined. Not cold like winter. Cold like a physical force, crushing his chest, stopping his heart. His muscles seize. His lungs won't work. The life vest keeps him afloat, but he can't move his arms. Can't swim. Can't do anything except gasp and shake and wait to die. This is it, he thinks. This is how it ends. 19 years old. Frozen to death in the Arctic Ocean. Nobody will ever find his body. Then something bumps against him. A piece of ice. Not a small chunk. A floe. A sheet of pack ice maybe 20 feet across. Thick enough to support weight. Jack grabs it. His fingers don't work anymore, but he hooks his arms over the edge and pulls. It takes everything he has. Every ounce of strength. Every bit of will. He hauls himself onto the ice and lies there, shaking so violently his teeth crack against each other. Around him, men are dying. He can hear them. Screaming, begging, praying. The sounds get quieter. One by one, they stop. Jack doesn't stop. He gets to his knees, then to his feet. He looks around. Trinidad is gone. Sunk or sailed away, he doesn't know. The convoy is gone. The other ships, scattered by the storm, have moved on. There's nothing. No rescue ships. No aircraft. Just ice and water and darkness. Jack starts walking. There's no reason to. No logic to it. The nearest land is Murmansk, 40 miles south. 40 miles of pack ice that shifts and cracks and breaks apart without warning. Men don't survive 40 miles in the Arctic. Not without food, without shelter, without proper clothing. Jack is wearing a soaked uniform and a life vest. His boots are freezing to his feet. He should lie down and let it end. Instead, he walks. The human body is not designed for the Arctic. At 40 degrees below zero, exposed skin freezes in less than 5 minutes. At 50 below, metal becomes brittle and shatters. At 60 below, your breath freezes before it leaves your mouth. Jack doesn't know the temperature. Doesn't matter. Cold enough to kill. He walks south. He has no compass, no map, no way to navigate except the stars when the clouds break. During the day, he follows the sun. At night, he follows the North Star. Sometimes the ice is solid, thick sheets that feel like concrete under his boots. Sometimes it's thin, cracking under his weight, forcing him to crawl on his belly to distribute the load. Twice he falls through. Twice he climbs out, soaked, shaking, certain he's dead. But he doesn't die. He keeps walking. Food is impossible. There's nothing to eat on the ice. No plants, no animals, nothing. He drinks by breaking off chunks of ice and melting them in his mouth. It takes hours to melt enough ice to get a few ounces of water. His body is eating itself, burning fat, then muscle, then anything it can to stay alive. By the third day, he's hallucinating, seeing ships on the horizon that aren't there, hearing voices, his mother calling his name, his father telling him to come home. He keeps walking. Day 5. Jack collapses. His legs don't work anymore. His vision is fading. He lies on the ice and waits to die. This is it. No dramatic rescue. No last-minute miracle. Just a teenager freezing to death alone in the Arctic. Then he sees the smoke. Thin, black, rising from the horizon. A ship. Or a hallucination. He doesn't know, doesn't care. He gets to his knees, then to his feet. He starts walking again. 2 hours later, he reaches the source of the smoke. It's a Soviet icebreaker, Stalin, stuck in the pack ice. The crew spots him. They think he's a ghost, a frozen corpse walking across the ice. They pull him aboard. He collapses on the deck. They carry him below, strip off his frozen clothes, wrap him in blankets, force hot tea down his throat. The ship's doctor examines him. Severe frostbite on both feet, 3 fingers on his left hand, his nose, his ears, hypothermia, dehydration, malnutrition. You should be dead, the doctor says in broken English. Jack doesn't respond. He's asleep before they finish the examination. He sleeps for 22 hours. When Jack wakes up, the icebreaker is moving. They're headed to Murmansk, the Soviet port on the Kola Peninsula, the destination for the Arctic convoys. Jack spends 2 weeks in a Soviet naval hospital. They save his feet, save his fingers. His nose and ears will be scarred for life, but he'll keep them. The frostbite could have been worse, should have been worse. The doctors don't understand how he survived. 5 days on the ice, no food, no shelter, temperatures that kill men in hours. But Jack doesn't care about the how. He cares about the why. Why did Trinidad sink? Who fired the torpedo? Where is U-585 now? The intelligence officers who debrief him don't have answers. The U-boat escaped. Probably made it back to Norway. Probably sank more ships. Probably killed more men. Jack asks to return to duty. They send him back to England instead. Medical discharge, they say. You've done enough. You're going home. Jack refuses. I'm not done, he tells them. The review board looks at his records. River Plate. Arctic convoys. 5 days on the ice. They make an exception. He's reassigned to Naval Intelligence, London. Translation work mostly. Intercepting German radio transmissions, decoding messages, tracking U-boat movements, desk work, safe work. Jack hates every second of it. But something happens during those months at the desk. Jack starts seeing patterns. The U-boats aren't random, they're coordinated, operating in wolf packs, groups of 10 or 15 submarines attacking convoys simultaneously. And they're getting their orders from somewhere. A command center, probably in Norway, probably near the coast. Jack brings this to his superior officer. It's already known, the officer says. We've been trying to locate the facility for months. No success. Jack doesn't give up. He starts mapping every U-boat attack in the North Atlantic. Dates, times, locations. He plots them on a wall-sized map in his quarters. Hundreds of pins, hundreds of ships, thousands of dead sailors. And slowly a pattern emerges. The attacks cluster, not randomly but in specific zones. Areas where the U-boats must be refueling, rearming, receiving new orders. Jack calculates the range of a Type 7 U-boat, maximum operational distance from base. He draws circles on the map. The circles intersect at one point. Trondheim, Norway, specifically a fjord 20 miles north of the city. That's where the command center is. That has to be where it is. Jack takes his findings to Admiral Sir Max Horton, Commander-in-Chief of the Western Approaches. Horton looks at the map, looks at Jack, looks at the map again. How certain are you? He asks. 90%, Jack says. Horton makes a decision. If you're right, this wins the war in the Atlantic. If you're wrong, we've wasted resources we can't afford to lose. Jack doesn't blink. I'm right, he says. Operation Archery is born, a combined arms raid on the Norwegian coast. Commandos, Royal Marines, naval bombardment. The target is the fjord Jack identified. The goal is to destroy the U-boat command center and every submarine in the area. December 27, 1941. The raid launches, 6 destroyers, 2 cruisers, 600 commandos. They hit the fjord at dawn. The Germans never see it coming. The command center is obliterated. 3 U-boats are sunk at anchor. 2 more are damaged beyond repair. Fuel depots, ammunition stores, repair facilities, all destroyed. The entire German submarine operation in the North Atlantic is crippled. It takes them 6 months to recover. 6 months where the convoys get through. 6 months where thousands of tons of supplies reach Britain and the Soviet Union. 6 months that change the course of the war. Jack doesn't participate in the raid. He's still on desk duty, still in London. He reads the after-action reports, sees the casualty lists. 72 British dead. 200 Germans. 3 U-boats confirmed destroyed. He doesn't celebrate, doesn't feel victorious, just tired. So incredibly tired. The nightmares are worse now. Not just River Plate, not just the ice, but Trondheim too. Men he's never met, dying because of a map he drew on a wall. April 1943. Jack requests transfer back to active sea duty. The review board denies it. You're more valuable here, they tell him. Intelligence work saves lives. Jack doesn't argue. He goes back to his desk. Back to the maps and the pins and the endless stream of reports. U-boat sightings, convoy losses, men freezing to death in the North Atlantic. He works 16-hour days. Doesn't take leave. Doesn't go home to see his family. His father writes him letters. Proud of you, son, you're doing important work. Jack doesn't write back. What would he say? That he's tracking men to their deaths? That he's responsible for killing hundreds of German sailors who probably didn't want this war any more than he did? That he can't sleep because every time he closes his eyes, he sees the ice? The war ends. May 8, 1945. Jack is 22 years old. He's been in the Navy for 6 years. Feels like 60. The Admiralty offers him a commission. Become an officer, they say. Career path, pension, security. Jack declines. He takes his discharge papers and goes home. Stepney is gone. The Blitz destroyed it. The docks, the warehouses, the narrow streets where he grew up. All rubble. His father is dead. Killed in an air raid in 1943. His mother remarried, moved to Surrey. His brothers are scattered. The home he left doesn't exist anymore. Jack gets a job at the new docks in Tilbury, loading cargo. Same work his father did. Same 12-hour shifts. Same honest work. He never talks about the war. Never tells anyone about Trinidad, about the ice, about Trondheim. When people ask, he says he was a sailor. That's all. Just a sailor. He marries in 1947. A woman named Ellen, a nurse who worked at the hospital where they treated his frostbite. They have 3 children. Jack works the docks for 40 years, retires in 1985, dies in 1993, age 70 in his sleep. Heart failure. They bury him in a civilian cemetery in Essex. No military honors, no mention of his service, just his name and his dates. The documents about Operation Archery remain classified until 1998. When they're finally released, historians discover Jack's role, the maps, the analysis, the intelligence that made the raid possible. They try to find him, want to interview him, write his story, give him the recognition he never received. But Jack is already dead. His wife is dead. His children don't know the details. Dad never talked about the war, they say. He had nightmares sometimes. That's all we know. In 2004, a small memorial plaque is installed at the Royal Naval Museum in Portsmouth. It lists the names of intelligence personnel who contributed to the Battle of the Atlantic. Jack Cornwell's name is there. 6th from the bottom. Easy to miss if you're not looking for it. Most people aren't. What Jack Cornwell did changed the war. The U-boat command center he identified was the linchpin of Germany's Atlantic operations. Destroying it crippled their ability to coordinate submarine attacks. Convoy losses dropped by 40% in the 6 months following the raid. Thousands of tons of supplies reached Britain and the Soviet Union. Supplies that kept the war effort going. That's not speculation. That's documented historical fact. But here's what the history books don't tell you. Jack didn't do it for glory. Didn't do it for recognition. Didn't do it because he was brave or special or destined for greatness. He did it because he was angry. Angry at the cold. Angry at the Germans. Angry at the war that killed his friends and nearly killed him. And that anger kept him alive on the ice, kept him walking when he should have laid down and died, kept him working when he could have taken the easy discharge and gone home. Anger isn't noble. It's not heroic. But sometimes it's the only thing that gets you through. Jack Cornwell walked 300 miles across pack ice that kills men in hours. He identified a target that turned the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic. He saved thousands of lives and never told a soul. Then he went home, got a job at the docks, and lived the rest of his life in quiet obscurity. No medals, no parades, no recognition. Just honest work and nightmares and the knowledge that he'd done what needed to be done. That's the real story. Not the hero who saves the day and gets the girl and lives happily ever after. The man who does the impossible, survives the unsurvivable, changes the course of history, and then goes back to loading cargo ships because that's the work that needs doing. That's Leonard Funk. That's Jack Cornwell. That's the men who fought World War II, the ones who didn't write books or give speeches or turn their service into a career. The ones who did their job, went home, and never spoke of it again. They're almost all gone now. The last veterans dying off, taking their stories with them. We owe them more than memory. We owe them the truth. That war doesn't make heroes. It makes survivors. And the real courage isn't in the fighting. It's in the living that comes after.